Speaking of freak offs, okay, Robert, I read the indictment against Puff Daddy. I believe that P. Diddy is up to absolute no goodness. I read that indictment, 3 charges. There was RICO, what was it, sex trafficking, prostitution. There was something about kidnapping in there, and he's been denied bail twice. Now, I think I know what you're going to say on this. Tell us what you think about him being denied bail a second time.
Yeah, I mean, there's the substantive charges and whether there's some weakness in those charges. In particular, like I was looking for something more clearly Epstein-esque. At least in the charges, you're not seeing those kind of charges. When is something sex trafficking, right? If it involves a bunch of willing, complicit participants, is that human trafficking in the same way? I mean, I think that's where there's some facts to be figured out, but everything about the case makes it appear that P. Diddy was running an Epstein-style operation and running it for a long time. Now, go back and look at the kind of people that are weirdly buddy-buddy with him. Look at the people who he gathered influence over. Look at the people on social media suddenly deleting their entire social media accounts. People like Pink, Usher, Justin Bieber. Go back to what Madison Cawthorn talked about, that they tried to host these orgies in D.C. to try to both induce you to their side and entrap you if you don't play ball with their side. My suspicion is twofold: that P. Diddy's been running this operation for a very long time, that it involves all kinds of perversion and entrapment. The real way you to have entrapment is to have something that people would really be disgusted by because of the nature of the act, or that's illegal, someone that's underage. He likely was using it and has
but just say there was no allegation of underage anything in the indictment, which I thought was remarkably absent.
Exactly. I was looking for Epstein-style allegations, and they're not there, even though there's plenty of other people that have said they are there. They're factually with P. Diddy, and yet strangely absent from the indictment. My read from the very first time this happened is that P. Diddy was running a blackmail extortion operation as his means of power. This is as old as politics around the world, but it's been especially true of the American media industry, Hollywood, music industry, etc., and American political power. P. Diddy was unusually connected politically. He was connected to people that are close to the Kamala Harris world, people that are close to a lot of high-ranking Democrats, much like Epstein. This doesn't have the intelligence operation angle. It appears to be more of a traditional blackmail extortion angle. A lot of people are going to have questions about people who have been apolitical suddenly getting political and endorsing people if they have a P. Diddy connection. My guess is that P. Diddy got too big for his head, decided he could blackmail and extort anybody when he was in trouble for any reason, and they decided to turn on him, and they want to control it. They want to have sole possession of all those blackmail and extortion files so he doesn't have any access to them. I mean, you can go on and on and on at the people connected and close to P. Diddy that implicate very, very, very powerful people. And now he's on Epstein watch, quite literally. He's in the same prison, on the same floor, for the same pretext of suicide watch that Epstein was at. Eternal truth number one: Epstein didn't kill himself. Are they going to kill P. Diddy? Well, he's in custody and claim it was suicide. They got away with it with Epstein. Watch them get away with it again. I think there's a way above average risk that P. Diddy never sees trial. That's my concern.
Now that you say it out loud, it is incredible as to the length, the degree to which they went out of their way to deny him bail, notwithstanding everything that he offered: private security to make sure he doesn't leave his apartment, condo, whichever, monitoring, no internet, no everything, $50 million bond, sell his plane so there's no flight risk. He's already given up his passports. They get him on these 3, I won't say innocuous charges, but they're, compared to what the allegations, suspicions were, innocuous, that have nothing to do with the blackmail extortion ring that they described that he had a setup a la Epstein in his place. And so they go in, seize everything, as we saw them do. They get all of the blackmail material, whatever, and then charge him with a bunch of RICO nonsense that has nothing to do with the underlying evidence that they have, and make off with it. And the story becomes P. Diddy and drug-fueled, baby-oiled, lathered-up sex parties, and not the blackmail material that he must have on a great many people.
What we've been trying to explain to people here is that sometimes a criminal prosecution is in fact the cover-up. The Hunter Biden criminal prosecution on tax charges was the cover-up. The goal was to make sure they could control Hunter and he wouldn't go AWOL. At the same time, make sure that the underlying facts about his criminality, running criminal operations at the behest of the Biden crime family, enriching and empowering deep state politicians in America and the administrative state still in power, that information never got public, and it never did. That was how they did the plea deal, and I predicted that they would magically have sentencing not happen until after Election Day in either case, and voila, this week, his gun sentencing case was delayed until after Election Day. We said Russiagate was, in fact, Mueller's way of covering up Spygate, of their illicit operation to spy on Team Trump and to smear Team Trump during the campaign and sabotage his ability to engage in a détente with Russia once elected. The Epstein operation had all the hallmarks of him going AWOL, them wanting to control it. And then they whacked him when he wouldn't play ball. Ghislaine Maxwell has managed not to know enough information. But what's critical that everybody keeps talking about is that in both criminal prosecutions, they managed to never disclose who and what were the real client list. Now, my issue on bail, aside from the fact that I think this is a cover-up operation and they plan to either extort P. Diddy into a plea deal or murder him, is I believe in the Eighth Amendment. Many of my conservative allies don't. They're selective about the Constitution. They don't like that promise of bail. They want to imprison people without trial. They don't like it when it's done to them, but I believe in the whole of the Eighth Amendment. And that is that unless you can prove by what should be clear and convincing evidence that a person will successfully flee and never appear for trial, they should be given bail. The definition of unreasonable bail is bail that doesn't relate to appearing at trial, to securing their presence at trial. There is no better evidence that someone will appear at trial than knowing for a year they're under criminal investigation, that knowing all the evidence against them has already been gathered by the government, and them taking no meaningful efforts to actually flee.
Devil's advocate. He's such a narcissist, he thought they would not charge him at the end of the investigation.
Even then. So now that he's been indicted, if he's such a narcissist, he believes that he'll never face sentencing too. How is it his narcissism is not broken when the search warrant is done, but magically is broken when the indictment is issued? So that's issue one. Issue two is, how do you show with actual evidence that there are no set of conditions other than imprisonment that will secure his presence at trial?
Quite literally, they said, we'll do anything, like we'll do anything. And the judge said, I'm not convinced.
These courts are such political hacks. They don't care about the Eighth Amendment. They care about the political perception about somebody politically unpopular being released pending trial. The reason for the constitutional standard is it was known that courts would not protect people's rights. We only punish people when they are convicted by a jury in America. What bail is that bail guarantees that.
Robert, just by way of example, I put this up, but this is a reply I got in YouTube.
And now let's take a little break from this video and thank our sponsor. America, listen up. The world is getting more unpredictable by the day. Political insanity, rumors of civil war, and an unstable stock market, and now the looming threat of a new global health emergency. Did you know that there's a thing called the bird flu coming in October? It's eerily reminiscent of Event 201 that foreshadowed the COVID pandemic. And get this, the first topic on the agenda is, quote, mass fatality management planning, end quote. If that doesn't send chills down your spine, I don't know what will. But here's the good news. You don't have to be scared if you're prepared. The wellness company created the emergency medical kit, and every home in America should have at least one of these. They're packed with life-saving meds like ivermectin, amoxicillin, and even Z-Pak, and it's all backed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough. Imagine this, no more frantic searches for a doctor, no more emergency waiting rooms, just a few clicks, and this kit is delivered to your front door. In times like these, having your medical emergency kit, it's not just a luxury, it's a necessity. Protect your family, protect yourselves. Now go to twc.health/Viva. Use promo code Viva for $30 off. Don't wait until it's too late. Take control of your lives now. Protect yourselves, protect your families from what's coming next, because something is coming next. Go to twc.health/Viva. Use promo code Viva. $30 off and free shipping. Now, back to the vlog.
What is it with this, quote, constitutional, end quote, nonsense? Reading the first line, I thought it was going to be a joke. Between Rekieta and this is becoming a sad joke. This guy is dangerous and has every means to pull a Roman Polanski. You can't trust him. He's got plenty of money. He's got all kinds of operatives, including powerful people in Hollywood. No doubt he has several passports, and it's likely multiple citizenships. But he's got offshore money, access to planes. In other words, the ideal flight risk. He just disappeared. He's done it before during the investigation, to which I replied, if it ever starts off with a statement with, what is it with this constitutional nonsense? That might be the non-starter. But then it gets into, he disappeared allegedly, but then meanwhile came back to be arrested. And what's up with this constitutional nonsense? It's called the Constitution. Set aside the constitutional argument. When you look at it as though the reason to deny him bail is to facilitate his Epstein in jail, that's exactly why you respect the constitutional right to bail pending trial, because he's not guilty yet. You might think he's guilty, and he might very well be guilty of a lot of stuff. He's still innocent until proven guilty. Denying bail is the utmost of unreasonable bail.
You have a part of the right that's very liberty-oriented, and you have a part that's really is fascistic and authoritarian, right? And a lot of them will come out, like that guy's statement. Well, what's up with this Constitution stuff? Right?
Yeah, you did the same thing with Mercado, Robert, you bastard.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you're getting the petty fascists. They're all over the place in the left, and they have a lot of power at the moment. But people shouldn't forget they're also all over the place on the right.
It's not an ordinary. It's freaking Puff Daddy. It would be like Andre the Giant trying to flee. Like, where are you going, sir?
There are almost no examples of people successfully fleeing
Roman
these kind of charges. One, you have to get to a country that won't extradite. That's almost no country in the world. Two, the few that won't extradite, they'll deport you. They do the same thing. Or they'll allow your kidnapping. Number three, the ability to legally escape in the modern world is almost non-existent. So why do they do this when they know the person can't successfully? The only people who successfully flee are people who are not citizens of the United States, who are part of a deep criminal underworld, global criminal underworld for a long period of time. And third, they're low profile people. They're arms runners, but they're not arms runners you and I know about. The idea of a celebrity being able to flee charges that are extraditable or deportable for the entire world, successfully being able to do so is next to nil.
Well, someone in our locals community said, come on, Robert, who wouldn't want to live in Iran? Like,
the idea that you could, more likely than not, that P. Diddy was going to flee was just nonsense. I mean, again, he proved it by voluntarily coming back and being and subjecting himself to U.S. jurisdiction, knowing the risk that it entailed.
Forfeited his passport. Presume it's the only one. We went over the terms. So what do you say? Not that there's a market for it, and I wouldn't bet on it if there is. More likely than not that he does not come out alive.
Either he's going to cut a plea deal or they're going to kill him. I'd say about 80-90% chance of that. And that's what these people are rewarding when they're like, oh, they love it's their punitive authoritarian streak that comes out. Mm-hmm. They can't wait.
Well, they're
politically permitted to people. The only difference between them and the left authoritarians and the right authoritarians is who they want to punish. But otherwise, they have that deep authoritarian punitive streak, and they can't wait to punish P. Diddy because he's been a disapproved figure. And they're so eager for it, they're taking the bait on covering up criminality rather than truly exposing it, which is what this case really is.
Yeah, and it's also they've morally justified it because they think P. Diddy is guilty, therefore it justifies pre-trial detention.